Alright, y'all. Today's story is on Michael Peterson. Um, he lives in Durham. This trial took place in Durham. I live, say about 2 hours away from Durham. Um, so yeah, let's do this case. Michael Ivor Peterson was born near Nashville, Tennessee, the son of Eugene Ivor Peterson and Eleanor Peterson. He graduated from Duke University with a bachelor's degree in political science. While there, Peterson was president of Sigma Nu fraternity and the editor of the Chronicle, the daily student newspaper from 1964 to 1965. He attended classes at the law school of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Tar Heels. After graduating, Peterson took a civilian job with the United States Department of Defense, where he was assigned to research arguments supporting increased military involvement in Vietnam. That year, he married Patricia Sue, who taught at an elementary school on the Bremen, Maine Air Base in West Germany. They had two children, Clayton and Todd, and in 1968, Peterson was commissioned in the United States Marine Corps and served in the Vietnam War. In 1971, he received an honorable discharge with the rank of captain after a car accident left him with permanent disability. Years later, during the 1999 Durham mayoral election, Peterson claimed that he had been awarded a Silver Star, a Bronze Star with Valor, and 2 Purple Hearts. He had all the medals but said he did not have the documentation for them. Peterson claimed that he had received 1 Purple Heart after being hit by shrapnel when another soldier stepped on a landmine, and the other when he was shot. He later admitted his war injury was not the result of a shrapnel wound in Vietnam, but was a result of a car accident in Japan, where he was stationed after the war as a military police officer. Peterson and his first wife Patricia lived in Germany for some time. There they befriended Elizabeth and George Ratliff and their 2 children, Margaret and Martha. After George's death, the Peterson and Ratliff families became very close. When Elizabeth Ratliff died in 1985, Michael became the guardian of the 2 children. After Michael and Patricia divorced in 1987, Clayton and Todd lived with Patricia, and Margaret and Martha stayed with Michael, who then moved to Durham, North Carolina. Clayton and Todd later also joined their father, and in 1989, Michael moved in with Catherine Atwater, a successful Nortel business executive. They married in 1997, and Kathleen's daughter Caitlin became the 5th sibling in the blended family. Peterson wrote 3 novels based around his experiences during the Vietnamese conflict: The Immortal Dragon, A Time of War, and A Bitter Peace. He co-wrote the biographical Charlie, Two Shoes, and Marines of Love Company. He co-wrote Operation Broken Reed. Peterson also worked as a newspaper columnist for the Herald Sun, where his columns became known for his criticism of the police and of Durham County District Attorney James Hardin Jr., who would later prosecute Peterson for the murder of his second wife, Kathleen. Kathleen's death. On December the 9th, 2001, Peterson called the emergency services on 911 to report that he had just found Kathleen Peterson unconscious in their Forest Hills neighborhood home in Durham, North Carolina, and suspected she had fallen 15 to 20, fallen down 15 to 20 stairs. He later claimed that he had been outside by the pool and had came in at 2:40 a.m. to find Kathleen at the foot of the stairs. Peterson said that she must have fallen down the stairs after consuming alcohol and Valium. Toxicology results showed that Kathleen's blood alcohol content was 0.07%, 70 milligrams per 1,000 milliliters. Her alcohol in her urine was 0.11, and she had taken between 5 and 15 milligrams of Valium. The autopsy report concluded that the 48-year-old woman sustained a matrix of severe injuries, including a fracture of the fracture of the left thyroid cartilage and several lacerations to the top and back of her head, consistent with blows from blunt force from a blunt object, and had died from blood loss 90 minutes to 2 hours after sustaining the injuries. Kathleen's daughter Caitlin and Kathleen's sister Candace both initially proclaimed Michael's innocence and publicly supported him alongside his children. But Candace reconsidered after learning of Michael's bisexuality, as did Caitlin after reading her mother's autopsy report. Both broke off from the rest of the family. Subsequently, broke off from the rest of the family. Although forensic expert Henry Lee, hired by the Petersons' defense, testified that the blood spatter evidence was consistent with an accidental fall down the stairs, police investigators concluded that the injuries were inconsistent with such an accident. As Peterson was the only person at the residence at the time of Kathleen's death, he was the prime suspect and was soon charged with her murder. He pled not guilty. The medical examiner, Deborah, concluded that Kathleen had died from her lacerations of the scalp caused by her homicidal assault. According to Deborah, the total of 7 lacerations to the top and back of Kathleen's head were the result of repeated blows with a light yet rigid weapon. The defense disputed this theory. According to their analysis, the lacerations were not consistent with blows of any sort, because there was lack of underlying injury, such as a skull fracture or bruising, swelling, or hemorrhaging of the brain. The trial drew increasing media attention as details of Peterson's private life emerged. Hardin and his prosecution team, among them Mike Neflong, attacked Peterson's credibility, focusing on his alleged misreporting of his military service and what they described as a gay life he led and kept secret. The prosecution contended that the Petersons' marriage was far from happy, suggesting that Kathleen had discovered Michael's alleged secret gay life and wanted to end the marriage. It was the main motive that the prosecution offered at the trial for Kathleen's alleged murderer, the other being a $1.5 million life insurance policy. According to Assistant District Attorney Frida Black, Kathleen Woodincoats would have been infuriated by learning that her husband, who she truly loved, was bisexual and having an extramarital relationship, not with another woman but a man, which would have been humiliating and embarrassing to her. We believe that once she learned this information, that an argument ensued and a homicide occurred. In quotes. The defense argued that Kathleen accepted Michael's bisexuality and that the marriage was very happy, a position supported by Michael and Kathleen's children and their other friends and associates. The prosecution said that Kathleen's murder was most likely committed when a custom-made fireplace poker called a blowpoke, good lord, had been the gift to the Petersons from Kathleen's sister, but was missing from the home at the time of the investigation. Later in the trial, the defense team produced the missing blowpoke, good lord, which they said had been overlooked in the garage by the police investigators. Forensic tests revealed that they had been untouched and unmoved for too long to have been used in the murder. A juror contacted after the trial noted that the jury had dismissed the idea of the blowpoke as the murder weapon. Suspicion surrounding Elizabeth Ratliff's death. Elizabeth Ratliff, a friend of the Petersons who died in Germany in 1985, had also been found dead at the foot of her staircase with injuries to her head. Her death has been investigated by both the German police and the U.S. military police. An autopsy at the time of death concluded that Ratliff died from an intracerebral hemorrhage. Based on the blood in her cerebrospinal fluid and the reports that she had been suffering severe, persistent headaches in the weeks leading up to her death. The coroner determined that the hemorrhage resulted in immediate death, followed by Ratliff falling down the stairs after collapsing. The Petersons had dinner with Ratliff and her daughters, and Peterson then stayed and helped Ratliff put the children to bed before going home. The children's nanny, Barbara, discovered the body when she arrived the next morning. Peterson was the last known person to see her alive. Before Peterson's trial, the Durham court ordered the Ratliff's body to be exhumed. She was buried in Texas for a second autopsy in April 2003. Arrangements were made for the Durham medical examiner who had initially performed Kathleen's autopsy, to perform the re-evaluation over the objections of defense counsel, who argued that the autopsy should be performed by Texas medical examiners. The body was then transported to Texas from Texas to Durham. The Durham ME found sufficient evidence drawn from the results of the second autopsy, along with new witness statements describing the scene, to overturn the earlier findings and list Ratliff's cause of death as homicide. The prosecution declined to accuse Peterson of Ratliff's death, but introduced the death into the trial as an incident, giving Peterson the idea of how to fake Kathleen's accident. Despite police reports that there was very little blood at the scene of Ratliff's death, the nanny, who was the first to discover Ratliff's body in 1985, took to the stand at Peterson's trial and testified that there was a large amount of blood at the scene. Another witness testified to spending much of the day cleaning bloodstains off the wall. Doubt as to the admissibility of Ratliff's evidence in the court was one of the grounds for the subsequent appeal against his conviction lodged by Peterson's lawyers in 2005. In October 2002, acting as administrator of Kathleen's estate, Caitlin filed a wrongful death claim against Peterson in June 2006. He voluntarily filed for bankruptcy. 2 weeks later, Caitlin filed an objection to the bankruptcy. On February 1st, 2007, Caitlin and Peterson settled the wrongful death claim for $25 million, pending acceptance by the courts involved. Finalization of the settlement by the court was announced February 1st, 2008. The verdict. On October 10, 2003, after one of the longest trials in North Carolina history, the Durham County jury found Peterson guilty of murder of Kathleen. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Denial of parole requires premeditation. Despite the jury accepting the murder as a spur of the moment crime, they also found it was premeditated. As one juror explained it, premeditated meant not only planning hours or days ahead, but it could also mean planning in seconds before committing a spur-of-the-moment crime. Peterson, who housed at the Nash Correctional Institution near Rocky Mount, was released on December 16, 2011. Appeal. Peterson's appeal was filed by his defense counsel with Thomas Murr now serving as his court-appointed attorney, and was argued before the North Carolina Court of Appeals on August 18, 2006. On September 19th, the Court of Appeals rejected Peterson's arguments that he did not get a fair trial because of the repeated judicial mistakes. The appeals ruling said that the evidence was fairly admitted, The judges did not find defects in the search warrant, but said that they had no ill effect on the defense. Because the ruling was not unanimous under North Carolina law, Peterson had the right to appeal to the North Carolina Supreme Court, which accepted the case. An oral agreement was heard on September 10, 2007, and on November 9th, the court announced they affirmed the decision of the appeals. Absent of reconsideration of the ruling or the raising of a federal issue, Peterson had exhausted the appeals of the verdict. On November 12, 2008, Jason Anthony of Richmond, Virginia, who was now representing Peterson, filed a motion for a new trial in Durham County Court on 3 grounds: that the prosecution withheld evidence about the blow poke, that the prosecution had an expert witness whose qualifications were disputed, and that one juror had based his judgment on racial factors. On March 10, 2009, Peterson's motion was denied by the Durham County Superior Court. The owl theory? Oh, I got here this one. Late 2009, a new theory on Kathleen's death was raised, that she had been attacked by a barred owl outside, falling after rushing inside, and then been knocked unconscious after hitting her head on the first tread of the steps. The owl theory was raised by Durham attorney T. Lawrence Pallard, a neighbor of the Petersons, who was not involved in the case but had been following the public details. He approached the police suggesting that an owl might have been responsible after reading the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation evidence list and finding a feather listed. Peterson's attorneys had determined that the SBI crime lab report listed a microscopic owl feather and a wooden silver sliver from a tree limb entangled in the clump of hair that they had pulled out of the roots, found clutched in Kathleen's left hand. A examination of the hair in September 2008 had 2 more microscopic owl feathers. So, could be. I'm not saying it ain't, but it could be. Despite interest in the theory among some outside advocates, no motion for a new trial was filed at this point in 2009. On March 2nd, 2017, following the Alford plea, Peterson's attorney filed a motion to allow him to pay for a bird expert from the Smithsonian Institute to examine feather fragments found in Kathleen's hair to determine whether or not she had been attacked by an owl. And then we have the Alford plea. On February 24, 2017, Peterson entered an Alford plea, a guilty plea entered because significant evidence exists to convict him of the offense, but the defendant asserts innocence. To the voluntary manslaughter of Kathleen. The judge sentenced him to a maximum of 86 months in prison, with credit for time previously served, because Peterson had already served more time than the sentence, 98 and a half months. He did not face an additional prison time. So let me know what y'all think down in the comments. I know this one's long, dragged out, and I get nervous on camera, so if y'all see me stumbling over words, I get really nervous when I'm doing this, but I'm trying to overcome that. And always please like, comment, and subscribe, and y'all have a good one.